בוקר טוב. אחרי הבילדאפ של ססיליה אני לא בטוח שכדאי שאני אדבר, אבל אני רוצה גם להגיד בוקר טוב, גם להגיד חודש טוב. אנחנו היום בראש חודש חשוון, אנחנו מדברים על זמן ומרחב, ולהתנצל בפני הדוברי העברית שאני אעבור לאנגלית קלוקלת לכבוד האורחים שלנו מעבר לים. ואני רוצה לדבר בעיקר על המבנה של היום הזה ומה שאנחנו הולכים לעשות איתו. ואני רוצה להתחיל בתמונה הזאת של, אנחנו רואים בה ילד בן 96 לדעתי, זו התמונה שצולמה ב-2018. מי שצילם אותה זה מיכאל ביטון, שהיה אז ראש מועצת ירוחם, ומורט מנדל הגיע באופן לא מתוכנן, שזה משהו שלא מאפיין אותו, לראות מה קורה עם הבניין. I moved to English now, I forgot that I said that I'm going to speak in English. Yeah. So this is Mort Mandel, the person who built the beautiful venue that we have in the Negev. And he came to a surprise visit to see the constructions. And I'm mentioning him from two reasons. First of all, because we are naming this conference after Mort, which had a vision to take our activity in the Negev to the next level, but he didn't think only about the space, he thought also about the whole context, and this is why the conference is so important for what we're doing in relation to Mort. But I'm mentioning also because of the building, and those of us who've been yesterday in the Mindset building have noticed that the ceiling is very high, and we discussed this with some of the friends, with Christine actually, and I think the high ceiling is not an accident. It makes a lot of the impression of what's happening to someone who enters the building. And this is only one example for the effect that space has on us. Actually, we have the illusion that we are designing spaces, but spaces are shaping us even much more. You cannot ignore a space with a message. If you're entering a synagogue or a church, or going to a terminal, you are affected by the space even if you don't want to be affected by it. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau have taught us in his book Emile about education that in order to have an effective learning, we must use our body and we must interact with other people and we must move in the space. And without doing this, we are lacking a lot of important aspects of learning. And Michael Bachtin taught us another thing, which is that we cannot really talk about space without thinking about time, if we want to understand the effect of the space on us. And to explain his point, I'll use one example that I guess each one of us knows from his own experience. Imagine you have guests in your home, and you're about to say goodbye, and then the guests are going through the door, and next to the doorway, they're stopping and starting to talk again. And usually those talks next to the doorway are much longer than you would plan them to be. They are on the way out, but they're stopping there and starting to talk. So this merge between the specific time, the time of going out of the door, and the space, the doorway, Bakhtin called it chronotop. Chronotop, he borrowed this notion from physics. It's a notion about that actually presents this merge between space and time. And Bakhtin's claim is that when we are affected by space, it's always connected also to time. We are now, let's say I gave the example of a terminal. If we are waiting to a flight and we have like 5 hours, we are affected from the space in one way. If we are waiting for a flight and we are 5 minutes, we're totally different effect. And when we want to analyze what's happening us in space, we must understand always the context. And if we move to the example of school, school is a perfect chronotop, is a very effective chronotop. And actually lots of the drama that happens in the classroom and the role playing, let's say the cool teacher or the bright kid, we are playing roles that are run by this merge of the chronotop, of the merge of space and time. And let's ask ourselves, what is the worst the worst possible learning chronotype that we can imagine. I think we can imagine a few, but for sure one of them will be the traditional classroom. 4 walls that you cannot really move in. You're just sitting passively, doing anything as opposed for what Rousseau was saying about using space effectively. We are not doing justice to the traditional classroom if we are not thinking also about the age of EdTech. And one of the most familiar slogans of this age, I think from more or less from the year of 2000, is anytime, anywhere, any device. But when you're this slogan presents sort of flexibility, but when you're thinking about it and having in mind all the big significance of the chronotype, of this very unique kind of combination between space and time, this statement says, in a way, we don't care about space and time. As long as we are injecting you the content and what you have to learn, we're good. We don't really pay attention to space and time. And I think, in a way, both the traditional classroom and this age of anytime, any place, any device are sharing the same problem. This problem is that they are treating us as a consciousness with no body. We are ignoring the space. We don't think the space is something that should make us think about planning it in a way that it will be more effective. And I think, and this is also the headline of this conference, that we are in a tipping point in this aspect. And to present or to explain or to tell the story about this tipping point, I'll follow Yossi's steps, and I also use a famous book that not justified branded as a kid's book, and it's this Alice in Wonderland. And as we remember the story, Alice is falling into a rabbit hole and find herself in a totally different world. And 20 years ago, when we all discovered the internet, even a bit more than 20 years ago, we were in the same situation. We lived in one universe, a very face-to-face, a very physical one, and we had this rabbit hole that we entered to the virtual world, and this virtual world has a totally different logic. It acted totally different. I could be a very gentle person in the physical world and be a very rude one when I'm meeting people online. I could learn in a very traditional way when I'm in the physical world and learn totally differently when I'm in the virtual one. And this whole different universe lived separately, in parallel to the other one, and there was like, we were moving from one universe to the other one. And now, in the last years, we are in a sort of a tipping point in the sense that the borders between those two worlds, the wall between those two worlds is starting to blur. We're starting to take those two worlds together, and this actually is a process that we can follow for many years. We can see the evolution of the technologies that we are using to meet this virtual world, starting from the huge computers, moving to the PCs, the IBM in the 80s, moving to laptops, moving to smartphones, moving to smartwatch. And as we are moving on time, the virtual world that was totally different and totally separated is going with us in the physical one. We have the IoT, Internet of Things, that connected our cars and our washing machines and make all those silent objects to be part of the knowledge web that we are surrounded by. We have the AR that brings sort of another layer of this virtual universe over the physical one. And last, at least in the discourse, not sure that it's still real as a phenomena, we have the metaverse that tries to bring all the mechanism of physical world into the virtual one. And all those trends that we see for many years were accelerated in the last 3 years through the COVID crisis, and really made us to live practically with a world in which we have no borders between those two universes. And now is the perfect timing really to rethink about how learning chronotype should be look like. And actually, this is what we're going to do today. We will start in the first session about really thinking about the new design, like answering directly these questions. We'll move to talk about learning in a global mindset. Again, I think we are part of a global discourse for about 15 years thanks to the social networks, but in the last 3 years, all of us, no matter if we're from China or from Afghanistan or from Israel, we experienced the same thing. We had this same crisis all over the world, and the fact that all of us share the same experience connects the virtual being global experience to the physical one, and requires us to think about space and time, not just about the learning space, but also about me in the world, and what's the background that should affect me. And talking about me and the world, the third session will be about identity. And again, we use to our role-playing in classroom and to my identity as a teacher or as a student, and to be separated from our online identity, like my identity in Snapchat or in Instagram or TikTok. And all of a sudden, in those 3 years, they were very close to each other. When we got confused, and sometimes my TikTok personality entered to the classroom, and vice versa. So we're going to dedicate the third session to identity. And the last session today will be dedicated to the significance of all those changes and really thinking about the potential to change school as part of the mission of the Unboxing School movement that we are part of. So I think the goal that we have in this day is moving from the anytime, anywhere, any device to sometime, someplace, and some device. Thank you very much.